Now, when I got on a plane, come down from Minnesota, we call the People's Republic of Minnesota. When I come down here, that's interstate commerce. When I arrived in beautiful Raleigh and got in a cab, that's intrastate commerce. When you've got commerce between two citizens of the same state, there is no federal nexus, and here's the novel idea. The federal government has absolutely no power to regulate that transaction. And if I buy insurance or I don't buy insurance, the federal government has no say in that as a North Carolinian. Now, which, by the way, is why I do believe, and I never make predictions, especially about the future, but that's why I believe this Supreme Court, 5-4, is going to strike down Obamacare. I really do. It's going to be close. It could go either way, but I think so. What my friend here, the future congressman, was talking about was during the Roosevelt administration, in a Supreme Court decision made up of whole cloth, they said, well, we believe that the Commerce Clause isn't meant just to regulate really interstate commerce. We believe the Commerce Clause can regulate anything that has an effect on interstate commerce. So, gee, if I buy a cup of Starbucks down the street here, that means I didn't buy one, where? In Virginia. That has an effect on interstate commerce. So the federal government can regulate the price of Starbucks here. It got so bad that in 1942, in a case called Wickard v. Pilburn, the Supreme Court told a fellow who was growing wheat, a farmer who was growing wheat, for his own consumption. He wasn't even engaged in commerce. His own consumption, that he could not do it because he was over the agricultural quota of the National Industrial Recovery Act. And at that point, we lost the Constitution. At that point, we are living under an unlimited government and not one bound by the chains of enumerated powers. And that's what we need to get back. That concept of divided sovereignty, of power divided, is crucial to our preservation of liberty. We all learn in civics class about the separation of powers horizontally between the judicial branch and the executive branch and the legislature. But what we're not taught anymore is the vertical separation of powers that was what Jefferson called the true theory of the Constitution. That the federal government's powers would be few and defined, and the plenary powers, most of which would remain in the states. And the purpose of that was to allow for the diversity of a republic this large. That's what Judge Brandeis called at one point in a Supreme Court dissent, the states were to be laboratories of democracy. So, for instance, and I'm nothing if not objective, I say so every night. But for instance, if indeed California wants to bail out bankrupt businesses, they want to subsidize health care, California even wants gay marriage. Look, under the Constitution, let California do it. But if North Carolina wants free market capitalism, they want pro-life legislation, and they want traditional marriage, by God, let North Carolina do it. And you know what? The power is left to the people to vote with their feet. That is the best way to limit government. You don't limit government by consolidated power. You limit government by dividing power, limiting its jurisdiction. That way, if government becomes oppressive, you may flee. If we consolidate power, and this is really what the framers were terrified of. They had lived under consolidated power across the pond. They did not want to repeat it here. If you consolidate power in Washington, where do you go when they get it wrong? If a state gets it wrong, you have a safety valve. If the federal government gets it wrong, we are stuck. And God forbid the United Nations gains more power, because then if they get it wrong and they govern the world under some sort of global governance, then where do we go? Yeah, and if you're Shirley MacLaine, you can go to Mars, but the rest of us are stuck on this planet. That, my friends, is why I wrote the book, Power Divided is Power Checked, The Argument for States' Rights. It is something we must rediscover. It is at the core of the debate over Obamacare. It is at the core of the debate over the bailouts. It is at the core of the debate over everything the federal government does. We have lost the ability to govern ourselves in our respective homes. That is something we do not want to bequeath to our children. That is something we do not want to leave to the next generation. That's what this debate is all about. What kind of country? Are we going to leave this country a little better than we found it? Will our posterity look back and say, in their time, they did what they had to? They did not substitute bailouts for bankruptcy. They did not substitute the federal government for the prerogative of the state. They did not substitute central planning for free market capitalism. That's what this is all about. First principles. It's about the right of the individual. It's about not turning over your resources to unelected bureaucrats. It's about doing what you think is best for yourself in your time. You know, I had the opportunity to actually see Atlas Shrugged. It's great being on the radio. You get these movies in advance. And you talk about Ayn Rand, you talk about Atlas Shrugged. And really what Rand was talking about. And I encourage everybody to see the movie. It's actually quite close to the book. She was talking about the power to exist for your own sake. The power that we are not here to work for the collective. We are not here to be slaves to society. We do not have an obligation to support total strangers. The beauty of America and the American experiment is this was the place where individuals could go to lead their lives as they see fit and fly as high as their abilities could take them, without having anybody or any government stand in their way. The right to own your labor, the right to own yourself, is all about freedom. If you don't have those, you don't have liberty. So let me finish with this. And thank you all for coming out. Thanks so much to 1061 WRDU. They're doing a great job. I especially like the change in the lineup at 6 o'clock. That was cheap, I know. Well, let me leave you with this in all seriousness. This is not about collectively what we believe. I mean, I get a kick out of these people calling the show and say, Jason, you don't understand. You're talking about private property. You're talking about lower taxes. Don't you care about the downtrodden? All you care about is money. And I'm perplexed by this. I say, if you want to help the poor, if you want to help those who are unfortunate, help them. Why do you need me and my tax money for you to do something good? Forced charity is an oxymoron. You cannot have charity without choice. If the government puts a gun to my head, I'm not being charitable, I'm avoiding jail. So these people that talk about, well, I believe in compassion, with other people's money, of course, are the antithesis of virtue. If Warren Buffett is worried about the deficit, Warren, write the government a check. If Bill Gates Sr. is worried about the estate tax being too low, break up Microsoft and pay the government more money. But they don't do that, do they? No, their idea of compassion is having you do the dirty work. Well, let me tell you something. You know, and I know, we both believe in this. We believe in faith. We believe in hope. We believe in prosperity. But none of those is possible without freedom. Thank you very much.